Jules here with a little narration because I do realize that plain video footage of museums can be extremely boring. These first two works we're going to look at are examples of Cycladic art, which would have been painted in really bright colors and are a very ancient form of ancient Greek art. And this guy we are going to talk about in detail because his story is really, really interesting and a little weird. So this guy right here is the death mask of Agamemnon. So essentially, it was found in a tomb. It would have been placed over the deceased person's head. Now it's called the Mask of Agamemnon because historically when it was found, people thought that it was perhaps part of like the funerary treasure of Agamemnon. Now, if you don't know who that guy is, he was a character slash historical figure in the Iliad, Homer's Iliad. He was the king of the Mycenaeans, so essentially he was the head dude of the Greek forces who came and sacked Troy. If you've seen the movie Troy, he's in it. You're not gonna learn anything from that, but it's fun. Watch it anyway. And yeah, so essentially when this mask was found, people were like, oh my God, it must have been this guy. We have no idea, because there's also a big debate whether, you know, whatever Homer was writing about actually happened or not, but that's what it's called for all intents and purposes. So yeah, also he has a nice mustache, so I felt like I had to include him. Now, random pieces I liked. This is an example of an early marine style of painting. This is Theseus slaying the Minotaur from mythology as well. Here we have a woman playing the panpipe for a satyr, which is the dude on the table. This guy I just liked because it has ducks on it and it looks like a pomegranate. And this guy I wrote a paper on my senior year of college, so I felt like I had to include it, otherwise, I don't know, something bad would happen. And this guy I just liked because it was sweet. It was a dad playing ball with his kid. Something to remember is that we're used to seeing ancient Greek and Roman sculpture as being very pure and white. Every single one of them would have been painted in really, really bright garish colors. So our idea of simple classical beauty is actually kind of skewed because everything would have been just like, bam! Early ancient Greek art was heavily inspired by the Egyptians, so you can kind of recognize that really rigid stance. These statues would have been found on tombs mainly. The women would be called kore and the men kouros. Now this guy is an interesting example of ancient Greek bronze statuary, and I'm going to explain why right now. So if you want to create a statue where the person is in a funny pose or has their arms out or is somehow unbalanced, you're going to have to figure out a way to do that without either the limb falling off or the entire statue just keeling over. And one answer to that problem is a technique called lost wax bronze casting, where the sculptor would create a wax statue of exactly how we wanted it to look in the end that would then be cast, and into that cast you would then pour the liquid bronze, and there would be these little fissures that would be left so that essentially when the hot metal comes in, all the wax would melt away and escape out of those little tubes, and then what you were left with was a bronze statue with like some bits sticking out where like maybe some of the bronze seeped through the holes. That would be shaved down, and then at the end you have a hollow bronze statue. So that allows you to create statues that are either a lot more balanced, a lot lighter, and so you have more freedom with the movements and shapes and positions that the people are in.
podía mandar las cosas.
history lesson number 2. So the Panathenaic Stadium was originally built in like the 6th century BC, and it was just a simple racetrack. It was later sort of built up first during the later Athenian period, and then when the Romans came around in like the 2nd century AD. And then it was largely abandoned when Christians arrived because, you don't do the games at that point. The stadium itself was then rediscovered, or not rediscovered, but dug up essentially in the late 1860s, and it then hosted the first official Olympic Games in 1896. Now, the ancient Olympic Games were actually not played here. As the name would suggest, they were played at Olympia, hence the Olympic Games, and obviously were in Athens. So this would have been like the local stadium for whatever games were going on here, but this stadium wasn't technically for the Olympic Games. That would be geographically impossible. One thing to note, Athens is not super wheelchair accessible, mainly because it's on a bunch of hills and mountainsides. This was one of the places where, surprisingly, it was wheelchair accessible. Now, I know you're looking at these steps and going, no, it isn't. Hear me out. You could definitely not climb up those stairs if you have reduced mobility, but you could still absolutely enter the stadium and the ring and enjoy it regardless. The access to it is pretty much flat, which is rare here. There is also a museum on site about the Olympic Games that has a lot of the original torches for those of you who are into that.